Hi, this is Kieran O'Hare.
And Liz Knowles from Open the Door for Three.
And you're listening to the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast.
This is show number 730. Welcome to the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast, helping you celebrate Celtic culture through music. I am a Celtic musician and also host of Folk Songs and Stories, and this podcast is for fans of Celtic music. We are here to build a diverse Celtic community and help the incredible artists who so generously share their music with you. If you hear music you love, please email the artists, let them know you heard them on the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast. Musicians depend on your generosity to release new music, so please find a way to support them. Buy a CD, album pin, shirt, digital download, or join their community on Patreon. You can find a link to all the artists in the show notes along with show times when you visit our website at CelticMusicPodcast.com. And if you send an email to follow at bestcelticmusic.net, that's bestcelticmusic.net, you can learn how to subscribe to the podcast and get a free music-only episode. You'll also learn how to get your band played on the show. We kicked off the show with, for Arda, that was Young Catherine from Carolan's Receipt for Drinking. And I've got a great interview coming up in a little bit. But first, we're going to get the music started with Bill, Treacy, and the Scope. This is the Sally Gardens from Life.
Was down by the Sally Gardens, my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally Gardens with little snow white feet. She beat me and take la peace there as the leaves go. And with hardened nuts agree in our fields down by the river, my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she placed her snow white hands. She beat me and take life easy as the grass grows on blue. But I, being young and foolish, and now I am full of tears.
Canada's muddy creeks and Canada's fields of pine. Your land of wheat is a goodly land, but oh, it is not mine. The heathy hill, the grassy dale, the daisy-spangled lea, the purling burn and craggy linn, old Scotland's glens give me. I would like to hear again the lark on Tinny's hill, or see the wee bit gowany that blooms beside the rill, like banished Swiss who views afar his Alps with longing ear. I gaze upon the morning star that shines on my country. No more I'll win by Eskdale Glen or Pentland's craggy combe. The days can ne'er come back again of 30 years that's gone, but fancy after midnight hour steal across the sea. Yestereve in a pleasant dream I saw the old country. Each well-known scene that met my view brought childhood joys to mind. The blackbird sang on Tushy Linn, the song he sang lang syne, but like a dream time flies away, and the morning came. I awoke in Canada, 3,000 miles from here. Away with Canada's muddy creeks and Canada's fields of pine. Your land of wheat is a goodly land, but oh, it is not mine. The heathy hill, the grassy dale, daisy-spangled lea, whirling burn and craggy linn, old Scotland's glens give me. But like a dream, time flies away, and the morning came. I awoke in Canada, 3,000 miles from here.
After Bill Treacy and the Scope came Adam Young with Watch the Weather, the trad version from his album Yearbook. Then Willowgreen with the Scottish Settlers' Lament from Willowgreen 3. Open the Door for 3 is one of the headliners for Irish Fest Atlanta. It's happening November 7th through 9th. They have a special guest dancer, Kevin Doyle, and they're performing on Friday night, and Saturday night is Aida. So lots of great music that's going to be happening all weekend right here in Atlanta. There's music and dance workshops, Irish cooking competitions, Irish tea, Irish films, and of course, lots of Irish dancing. So celebrate your Irish heritage with Irish Fest Atlanta in November and bring a friend. Go to irishfestatlanta.com for more details, and let's meet Open the Door for 3. Here's my interview. Welcome all. Today, I am excited to share an artist that is performing at Irish Fest Atlanta. That's happening in November. So we have Opened the Door for 3 who are in the studio, or no, actually, we're virtual studio right now. Welcome. How y'all doing?
Pretty good. Thanks. Great to be here, Mark.
Yeah, great.
So you first submitted you've been playing, it looks like, for a long time now, but it looks like you didn't submit music to the podcast until just a past year, I think it was. And I'm excited. Can you tell me a little bit about the band so that I can learn more what to share with the audience about you in the days to come?
Yeah, sure. Open the Door for 3 is a trio. I play the uilleann pipes and the flute and the tin whistle. Pat Broaders from Dublin sings and plays the bouzouki, and Liz Knowles here plays the fiddle. We just released our 4th album this time last year. It's called A Prosperous Gale. We started working together with Pat Broaders, over 20 years ago, and our road took us basically all over the world with different projects, theatrical projects, music and dance projects, and we sort of spun the trio out of a project we'd been working on for many years in France. So we've been playing together as Open the Door for 3 since about 2012, and as I said, we've released it's 4 albums now, which is fairly decent rate of releasing material once every 2 or 3 years, I suppose. So, we just love it. It's a great vehicle for our music and a great way for us to express the way we approach Irish traditional music. And, what more can I say?
Where are y'all based out of?
Kieran and I live in Portland, Maine these days, but at the time that we met Pat, we were in Chicago. So we had been in Chicago for a good few years and then moved out here. So Pat's still in Chicago and we're in Maine.
And now you said you did something in France. How did that happen? What is that all about?
We did a number of different productions. Myself and Kieran were music directors for a live Irish music and dance show that toured France, Spain. I think we did various other countries. We went to South America and China. It was kind of just a long running project that, turned into, it was wonderful. Just a lot of time on the road, organizing a show and producing a show. And, we got a lot of great time. I kind of always tell people those were our Beatles years, with Pat, because we just we played hundreds and hundreds of shows together. And so the first album really just literally fell out of us very easily, because of that logged time on the road.
Yeah. So you say producing your show, because how long were you producing that show?
In total, there were about 6 years of that. So, we've been professional musicians since we were in college. So that's, well over 30 years now we've been doing it. And it's funny how, that life and that path takes you down all sorts of different directions. And, like most people who play Irish music, we've played our share of bar gigs. Those are in the rearview mirror these days, but we've had the pleasure to work, in all sorts of different contexts, theatrical contexts, which we love being part of, larger productions and collaborative efforts, all sorts of different avenues for us to have played our music over the years. So that particular project in France was a great way for us to sort of hone our skills as arrangers and, music directors and being part of a larger production, I guess, where you're dealing with technical crew and you're dealing with dancers and logistics and all that. And it's all just it's very satisfying on multiple levels as a musician to have work like that.
So what does that look like as far as the production aspect? So what is your typical show look like when people are watching it on stage? What do you expect to get them to get out of it? And what do you get out of it?
Well, I mean, one of the things that kind of came out of doing those larger productions, because we involved dancers and singers and lights and sound and the whole thing, is that we tried to create a much more theatrical presentation of the music. So rather than, it's not that we don't love it, just a simple set of tunes or a song, and these things would remain separate, maybe on a typical concert. One of the things we enjoy doing and really enjoy doing from a theatrical standpoint, but also now as a concert option, is to create suites of music that really kind of take you through a tune, take you through an air, through a song, all in one piece, so that it's kind of a through composed, I guess it would be the word, assembled set of tunes that gives the listener kind of an experience rather than kind of keeping these things very separate. We love that. We also do just a plain set of tunes. We very much love that, and solos and this kind of thing. So we try to keep the shows interesting in that way. I mean, I think for us, there's no question that how we design a show is how we really think of the music. So whether we're practicing at home or we're just doing this for fun, we're always thinking about, what tune could go into another tune. We're always looking at different sources for those tunes and songs. I think between the three of us, one of the things that kind of bonded us immediately as friends was just a similar outlook on how to source tunes, where we got our music, how important it was to have that data behind the music. Not that just we're presenting jigs because they're an Irish jig, but that a tune is connected to a person, it's connected to a place, it's connected to a time period. And so we feel it's very important to kind of make that apparent in our concert presentation.
Very cool. Well, let's listen to some music. Why don't you introduce the first track that you want to share with my audience, and if there's any stories that go behind it or how you pick those tracks, let me know.
Sure. I think we're going to start off with it's the first track off Prosperous, Gale. It's 3 jigs, and we just play this as a sort of a traditional classic set of tunes. The first one is a tune called The Fairy Jig, and it's a tune that's held in common by both the Irish and Scottish traditions. It's in, I think there's a version of it in the O'Neill collection and older collections as well. I happened to learn it from a friend of mine in Cape Breton, a fiddle player called Howie MacDonald. Liz and I over the years have spent loads and loads of time in Cape Breton, so we have a great and deep affinity for that place and that music. So the first jig, the Fairy Jig. The second one comes from the miraculously gifted and unfortunately no longer with us Acadian Scottish fiddle player, also from Cape Breton. His name was Arthur Muse, and Arthur learned this jig from, I believe he learned it from Robert Stubbart, a fiddler from the north side of Cape Breton. The first part feels a lot like the Irish jig, The Cook in the Kitchen, but the second part goes a completely different direction. So we just call it Arthur's Cook in the Kitchen. And the final jig comes from the playing of 2 great friends of ours, the piper Tommy Keane from Waterford and his wife Jacqueline McCarthy from London, both now live in Galway. And it's a tune that they sort of made their own called the Kool-Aid Jig, and we always love playing it. So this is a classic open the door for 3 arrangement of 3 dance tunes.
fantastic. I love the fusion of the in particular the pipes and the fiddle coming in there. So that sounds amazing. And this is from A Prosperous Gale, the Fairy Jig set. So tell me about your album. You have the album that you released last year. It's called A Prosperous Gale. And how did that come about?
Well, it came about much like many of the other albums. I mean, I think as a trio, we spend a lot of time together on the road, and we continue to do so. And there's always new tunes bubbling up and new songs. Pat will, throughout the year, he'll just kind of send us something and say, "Hey, I'm working on this." We're each, all of us, working on things in the background and just kind of let it arrive to the trio. And so, became time to do another album. It was, and we had a number of things assembled in our head. Each of the tracks, again, much like that Fairy Jig set, we could kind of go through and tell you that there's some reason for that tune arriving in, and some background and some story to it. There really is no set of tunes that we play or songs that we play that is just simply, here's this song, with no reference point. So I would just say that these albums kind of they come very organically. It's not something that we necessarily say, okay, it's time to make an album, start making a list. That list has been kind of ongoing.
Yeah, I suppose, there's another way of looking at it too, is that, having a project like a CD to work towards is sort of a forcing function in a way as an artist to get new material on the go. Obviously, as Liz said, we're accumulating songs and accumulating tunes just as part of our daily lives as traditional musicians. But when you set in front of you a task like, okay, we're going to make a CD, it's maybe not unlike, a visual artist having a gallery exhibition. I mean, there's all sorts of stories of painters hanging paintings that are still wet as an exhibition is opening, but the exhibition itself forces the artist to create new work. And, for certainly the last maybe century or so, musicians have used opportunities for recording as a way to sort of coalesce the repertoire and material that we're working on. And I'll also say one thing, Liz said it very, very well, but you asked earlier about what does an Open the Door for Three show or performance look like? And the fact of the matter is that for us, all of the songs and all of the tunes are encrusted with data, as it were, data of time and of place and of people. Like, the Fairy Jig, I learned it from Howie McDonald in that last set. Yeah. I mean, I could have learned it just off his CD, but I happen to know Howie very well. And I happen to have had great experiences with Howie and listening to Howie and being cracked up by Howie over the years. So when we play the Fairy Jig, it's, being part of a living tradition means that all of the music is connected to people and to place and to story and experience. And we always like to talk about that and bring that to the fore in our shows. So it's as much of a storytelling and a story experiencing exercise as a musical one, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I love that. As a primarily singer, I find the songs that are strongest for me are the ones that have a great story behind them. So,
yeah.
And that part of that story be your story.
Yes. And that's a big, I think that the trouble I've had sometimes with some traditional Irish songs for me singing them is that I don't feel connected to the story. As soon as I find some sort of connection, and it can be almost manufactured, like I was playing at this one show and someone made a comment, or, that alone makes the difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think Kieran said it as well. A traditional music is a living tradition. So it's constantly ebbing and flowing and changing. So it changes with every new experience that you have with it. One of the things I'm always telling students, and I would tell anyone, is that, when we play these tunes and these songs, the assumption is that we're not going to just do it once. We're not even going to do it just 50 times. The assumption is that over the course of our lifetime, we're going to play that Fairy Jig like several thousand times. And so, this isn't just about just repeating the tune for the sake of repeating it. It's actually to feel the tune again, remember those experiences, remember that person that we learned it from, all of those things, and then all of the new experiences that come from it. There was a tune on a previous album that had loads of connections to a particular player, and we played a gig. I can't even remember where it was, but we played a gig, and there was a woman in the the audience that knew the person that we had gotten the tune from. Now, we had gotten it from an archival recording. I had never met this person. Kieran got to meet this guy once, but she grew up with this family. So you just never know who you're going to run across, and then their connections to the tune that you're playing or the song that you're playing.
It's about stories that are shared, within a tradition. It's about, the story, the tune itself has a story without you ever coming into contact with it, but you come into contact with it and then you become part of the story. And that's how a tradition gets passed on. And that's what makes it so rich. So it's not just a bunch of old tunes that we're pucking out up on stage. It's, we're telling stories. We're telling about our experiences, with this great gift of music that we've received.
You mentioned at the start of our interview that your approach to traditional music. Is this part of how you consider your approach, or is it? I mean, how much of that is when you're out? And you also mentioned at the beginning of this section where you were talking with Pat, and he was sending you some tunes and tracks, ideas. How does that all come together with your approach to traditional music? What sets you apart?
Well, I don't know how much of this sets us apart. I just know that we have kind of found a way to work within the three of us. Again, I think there were some similarities, great similarities between the three of us about who were influences, the recordings that we knew, the people that we knew, but then there are great differences too. I did not grow up playing Irish music, nor did I hear Irish music really. My grandfather used to sing songs that I think looking back, yes, some of them were Irish, but I never really knew what they were until I started really discovering Irish music. So my background is very different from Kieran and Pat's in that regard. Having said that, I think there's we all have a similar approach to kind of coming to that feeling of almost, I don't really use the word lightly, but reverence for all of that data that is attached to this stuff, and really being respectful to the fact that this music has been around long before us and it will be around long after us, and that it is, partially our responsibility to protect it, to be good to it, to understand it, and to pass it on in the most genuine and authentic way. So I just think as a trio, we have a very similar sense of that. And so anytime we approach arrangement, I'm usually the one that's kind of pushing maybe the boundaries of arrangement in ways that that the guys maybe didn't know about or hadn't considered. And so we're always in discussion about how far to go or what feels good about doing certain things. So it's very much a communal effort. It's very much we're just trying to find our own sensibilities in all of this. And as a trio, I think we found a sensibility as a trio in terms of our interpretation of the things that we choose to play together.
Well, let's listen to some more music. What do you have next for us?
We've selected a track called Celia, Connellan. It is a tune that was composed, I believe, we're probably around 1700 by, if you hear about Irish harp music, people always talk about Turlough Carolan, but there were certainly other harpers and composers, back in the day, honestly, during the Baroque period, as it were. And this man, Thomas Connellan from Coolani, County Sligo, composed this piece of music. And we learned it from the wonderful, Australian-born guitar player Steve Cooney, who's had a tremendous impact on Irish traditional music over the last decades. And he put out an album solely of Irish harp repertoire played on solo guitar. And so we learned this tune from his playing. And you were talking about arrangement. We play this tune in the most straightforward way possible, because what we find a lot of the times, we dig through old collections of music, archival material, manuscripts. And a lot of times we find that some of these melodies that haven't been played in a century or 2 centuries perhaps are so unbelievably powerful that they don't need much of our meddling to bring them across. So this is simply bouzouki. I play the uilleann pipes chanter, and Liz is playing a very special instrument on this track. It's called it's a Harding. It's basically a Hardinger fiddle, but a 5-string Hardinger fiddle, which is a Norwegian fiddle, which has not only 5 strings on top, but 5 strings that run underneath the fingerboard and bridge, and they resonate, giving the fiddle almost its own natural reverb. So it has a very, very distinctive and haunting sound. So this is just a piece of very old Irish harp music played by us.
sportsman, I pray you draw near to a few simple verses you quickly shall hear. It's the deeds of a hero that lives near Ballybay. They call him Hugh Jackson, I've heard people say. His mill kilns and barns, they do cut the right shore, and his cloth to the north and the city does go. At bleaching and lapping he does beat them all, and his cloth was first approved of at the Linen Hall. No more of his praises I'm going to explain, so if you will assist me I'll sing about Jane. Search Ireland all over from Cork to Kildare, you'll ne'er find a match for Hugh Jackson's grey mare. He went to the stable, kind sir, don't you know? This cup is me own and I won't let it go. For twice I have won it and I mean to do still. I mean roll it in splendour from the plains of Cootel. Now the jockeys were mounted and all in a row, and if you'd have been there when off they did go, now the bets they were making 10 guineas to 4, that the cup back to Cree would return nevermore. When Jane she heard the swell, her mettle did rise, over hedges and ditches like lightning she flies, and with a loud neigh these words she did say, "You Bellamon sportsman, I'll show you the way." Jane and her jockey were half round the course. Miss Jane and her jockey began to discourse. Said Miss Jane to her jockey, "Kind sir, let me know, where are my opponents, or are they in view?" Well, he turned in his saddle and he cast an eye round. As for Squire Adams, he lies on the ground. I'm afraid that poor Cuddy by Spanker is through, and the rest of your opponents, they are not yet in view. When Jane she heard this well, she went to the race, and into the scales the balance was placed. Now the hall was surrounded for Jackson and Jane, and the cup went with honours back to Cree once again.
That was Celia Connellan from the album A Prosperous Gale by Open the Door for Three. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. This the next section is going to be where we, talk about things that inspire you with Celtic music. And so let's start by asking you, name a Celtic album that inspired you?
I'll go first. We probably have different answers for this. I know that we have different answers for this. The kinds of albums that inspired me, it's kind of changed over my lifetime in Irish music. In the beginning, I think not having grown up with traditional music, I came to kind of hearing this in public settings on a concert stage. And so my first kind of foray into Irish music, I was totally enthralled by bands, groups that were doing big arrangements of things. And I still do. I still listen to albums like that. Planksty and some of the older ones are still on the playlist for me. But very quickly, I went toward looking at individual players. One of I think some of the albums that I would still have on rotation for me that were great influencers in terms of my listening and my playing were albums like The Godfather by Brian Rooney, albums by Cathal Hayden, Frankie Gavin, Martin Hayes, Liz Carroll, Jerry Holland. These were, obviously as a fiddle player, I was zeroed in on finding fiddle players and trying to know what to do with the music through their eyes and ears and hands. Interestingly enough, and I don't think surprising, I very quickly graduated toward really relying on archival recordings. Now, this could be anything from a tape that somebody made at a session, that happened a lot more, obviously, in the early days, long before MP3s and iPhones and this kind of thing. People would just kind of exchange tapes from sessions, or you would make your own tapes from sessions. But I also really avail myself of all of the opportunities to listen to anything archival from websites such as the Irish Traditional Music Archive, itma.ie. Really, at the end of the day, these days, I spend a lot of time listening mostly to archival playing, live recordings of solo players, and preferably as old as possible. I'll let Kieran answer for himself.
Chieftain's 8.
Chieftain's 8.
There's my answer. Chieftain's 8 was the first album of traditional music I consciously listened to. I think it came out in the late 70s, and my father would have it on in the house. And so much great music came out of that band over the years. And I think people that purport to be interested in Irish traditional music often overlook the Chieftains. One of the best fiddle players in the history of the music, one of the best pipers in the history of the music, one of the best tin whistle players in the history of the music, in the form of the late, great Sean Potts. That album was tremendously influential for me in its approach to sound and to repertoire. So Chieftain's 8.
Very cool. So I love to travel and frequently take some of my listeners on trips and such. So is there a place that our listeners should visit and that has inspired you? And if it's inspired into music, I'd love to hear about that.
Obviously, it would sort of be completely pig ignorant of me not to mention Ireland, as someone that plays Irish traditional music for a living. Any trip to Ireland is always a wonderful thing. But here in North America, within a drive, maybe not a convenient drive, there are two places worth checking out. One is Quebec, and the other is Cape Breton Island. And both of these places have traditions of music, of fiddle playing, add the accordion to it in Quebec, but in Cape Breton, it's fiddle playing, that are, to me, first cousins of Irish traditional music. And I remember as a late teenager being exposed to musicians my own age from Cape Breton and Quebec at festivals here on the East Coast, and being blown away that right here in North America were sort of adjacent traditions of music where people had, not only the same love for jigs and reels, but almost the same sense of humor and the same joie de vivre that we have, with an Irish and Irish American culture. So if you're looking to take a trip, summertime in Cape Breton is fabulous, and there's all sorts of amazing festivals in Quebec, festivals that present local traditional music. So those would be my picks.
And I would just add, when Kieran and I look for travel that doesn't involve work, which doesn't really happen all that often, but occasionally, I think what we're drawn to is any place that still has evidence of a living tradition. That could be about food, it could be about music, it could be about dance. I'm all for the kind of touristy kind of experience of seeing something amazing that's really couched in a very touristy way. But what I'm really interested in, both musically and in all of these other ways, is really seeing something that's very human based, that is traditional, that has been around, has been fueled by generations of human beings. That's just kind of what just kind of gets me up in the morning and makes life exciting. So, and there are a lot of places around the world. Our travels in France took us to a number of places that we would always go back to. Obviously, Ireland is the center for so much of what we do and who we are. And there are loads of places there. Yes.
And also, I'd say one thing, Mark, when it comes to travel, to me, I think there's a major distinction between being a tourist and being a traveler.
Yeah.
Being a tourist means going and sort of looking at a place, skimming along the surface of it like a skipped rock on a still pond, maybe.
Which can be fun.
Which can be fun, but if you're taking time out of, our busy lives, sometimes I think it's probably a better idea to go stay in one place and explore and talk and meet people and get to know the land and the landscape, rather than just to accept some veneer of a place that's sold to us on a touristic basis, or that's made easily accessible or easily digestible. Go and investigate and be curious, So I think those are two, you could make the most out of a trip nearly anywhere if you apply that sort of approach to it, rather than just skimming over the surface and expecting the easy experience.
Yeah, that's definitely how I've been doing my Celtic Invasion vacations. I'll basically stay in one area, get to know the region. It's really cool.
That's great.
So you've been traveling a lot. You do a lot of festivals, a lot of venues. And have you met any up and coming artists that we might not know about and that we should definitely keep an ear open for?
My God, Irish traditional music is alive and well and tremendously healthy these days. I've spent a lot of years affiliated with Na Pibri Uillinn, which is the Pipers Club in Dublin, also a great source for archival material to listen to at pipers.ie. But I've been so excited there's been an absolute explosion of interest in Uillinn piping, which is, the type of Irish bagpipes that I play. And so many young people are playing, and a lot more young women and girls are taking up the pipes, which is such an exciting development. The player that I love listening to, and he's no kid anymore, but he ain't that old either, is a piper by the name of Pádraig Keane. And he's actually the son of this Tommy Keane and Jacqueline McCarthy that I mentioned before.
Oh, cool.
He has a wonderful album available through Bandcamp. His name is Pádraig Keane, and he's a player that's really, really, I've known him since he was a little kid, but he's given me a real shot in the arm to listen to. Really, really exciting. His playing is resonant with all of the music and influence of the past, but he's got his own individual touch and an incredible, I guess the word I would use is sparkle to his playing.
Cool. How about you, Liz?
Well, I'll just reference something we just experienced. We were just at the Rockport Celtic Festival in Rockport, Massachusetts last weekend. A very intensive 5 days. I was artist in residence there, and the trio was there. And the curator of that festival, Maeve Gilchrist, she's a fabulous harpist and just wonderful human being, brought loads of different artists together for various collaborations. And this isn't necessarily in the Irish or Celtic vein, although some of them were. There were some just amazing. There was one evening that we did a Celtic Baroque concert, and involved in that concert was two Canadians, Nicola Babineau and Alexis Chartrand. He's a fiddle player, and Nicola is a fiddle player and guitar player. Very interesting duo. One of them plays a Baroque violin, one of them plays a regular violin. So I was really interested in that integration integration of those two kinds of styles. There was also a Grammy-winning Baroque fiddle player named Christina Day Martinson, who I had only peripherally known of, and she just blew my doors off in terms of just a Baroque fiddle player. And I think we're going to exchange ideas and lessons just to kind of, she loves Irish music, never played it, and I played early music way back in the day and would love to be doing more of it. So there was just really great connections between these people, and being able to meet these people. There was another trio, again, not necessarily young players, but it was new to me. From New England, Triton is their name, is the trio. And just a really, I think for us, it was just great to meet another trio that has a lot of the same sensibilities for arrangement and creating a much larger sound than what you see of just three people in front of you. So it's lots of different things that kind of inspire me along the way. I think I would be hard pressed to say that I'm not inspired. I would have a hard time saying that I run across any musician that I couldn't find something to be inspired by.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we finish up with the interview, Irish Fest Atlanta, it's taking place November 8th and 9th. So coming up really soon. And I'm curious, what have you been to Atlanta before? Have you had a chance to be at Irish Fest Atlanta? And what are you looking forward to when you're there?
Yeah, sure. We the last time we were at Irish Fest Atlanta, I want to say it was like 2014 or something. The Irish traditional music community is a small one, so we know a lot of people. I know people like Gary White through the piping community in Georgia, and then of course, there's Patrick Finley and Holly Greenwood, two tremendous fiddle players who came out of the Atlanta scene. So we're looking forward to seeing a lot of old friends, and we're also bringing an amazing dancer with us, a man by the name of Kevin Doyle, who's a National Heritage Award-winning step and tap dancer. And Kevin's an old friend of ours, and he's tremendously entertaining and a wonderful dancer. So we're really looking forward to bringing, not only what we do, the most recent update of what we do as a trio, but to doing some collaborative stuff on stage with Kevin Doyle. And yeah, sure, meeting all the musicians, playing a few tunes, hanging out. That's what festivals are. And we're really, really looking forward to coming back to Atlanta.
Now, do y'all have some workshops planned?
Yes, indeed. I think the day, I believe it's on the Saturday at the festival, Liz is going to be talking about the fiddle, teaching a fiddle workshop. I'm going to be teaching the pipes, and Pat's doing a workshop, I believe, on singing. Passing on the tradition and teaching people is something not only that we've done a lot of, but that we spend a lot of time talking about and thinking about on a methodology basis, trying to how can we most effectively pass on, as I referred to it before, this gift that we have been given, to those people that have an interest in playing the music themselves. So, it feels like great home ground for us to be giving workshops at an Irish festival. We've been doing it for many decades.
And your show is that on, which night is that on?
Our show is on the Friday night at the festival, and our workshops are on the Saturday.
Fantastic. Well, I am looking forward to seeing you out there. Is there any final words that you'd like to share share to the audience?
Well, I'll get points for this, but I could point out that Liz Knowles here has a podcast of her own with the great Irish American fiddle player Liz Carroll. It's a podcast called The Liz's, and they talk about everything from playing the fiddle to life on the road to Chicago baseball. Or at least Liz Carroll does. Rabid baseball fan, but that's been an amazing thing for me to be able to witness them working on, and it's great to just see podcasts like your own, Mark, and this one that they're doing, which are basically, there isn't much dialogue about music. About Irish music, I have to say. People don't really, there's not many opportunities sort of available in the public eye for people to hear conversations by musicians, among musicians about music. And it's great to see some of that going on and to be a part of yours. And thanks so much for having us.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Liz and Kieran. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know we had trouble getting together because touring schedules of ours, y'all were all over the place, I think. So, But thank you so much. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person in November. So in the meantime, why don't you introduce the final track and make sure you check out Open the Door for Three's latest album, A Prosperous Gale. And go ahead. Let's introduce the next track.
The last track we picked is one of those suites of music that I mentioned at the beginning, and we call it Jackson and Jane, but it starts with a reel that I dug out of a collection that is supposed to be a fast reel, but I was kind of messing about with it at home, and it ended up being a nicer tune at a slower pace. So the first tune is called Freels. We move into this song called Jackson and Jane, which is a fabulous song about a talking horse. So enjoy that story as you're listening to it. And then we move into two reels that, of course, have great connections for us. The first one is Coughlin's that we got from Jackie Martin, great fiddle player in Dublin. And the second tune is Dylan Brown that we got from the playing of Mick O'Brien, the great piper Mick O'Brien.
All right, here's Open the Door for Three. I hope you enjoyed that interview. If you did, make sure you go to openthedoor43.com to find out more about them. They are all over the socials, and so keep at it. Thank you, patrons of the podcast. Because of your generosity, the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast releases new episodes nearly every single week. Your support doesn't just fund the show, it fuels a movement. It helps us share the magic of Celtic music with thousands of new listeners and grow a global community of music lovers. Your contributions pay for everything behind the scenes: audio engineering, stunning graphics, weekly issues of the Celtic Music magazine, show promotion, and most importantly, buying the music we feature from indie Celtic artists. And if you're not yet a patron, you are missing out. Patrons get early access to episodes, music-only editions, free MP3 downloads, exclusive stories and artist interviews, and a vote in the Celtic Top 20. Join us today and help keep the music alive, vibrant, and independent. There are 5 music-only episodes called highlight reels that are now available over on Patreon. So you want to hear these episodes and you want to vote for them, because they're going to be all we're going to find out who's going to win the Celtic Top 20, who's going to be the top artist of the year. So go check it out. A special thanks to our underwriter, Annie Lorkowski, who signed up. I guess it was actually a couple weeks back, but it just came up on the Patreon announcements of benefits. So we do need some new patrons to keep this show running. So if you're able and willing to do so, here is your 3-step plan to support the podcast. Number 1, go to our Patreon page. Number 2, decide how much you want to pledge every month. $4, $12, $25, $100. We have one more space for an underwriter. And number 3, keep listening to the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast to celebrate Celtic culture through music. You can become a generous patron of the podcast on Patreon at songhinge.com. Oh, and I should point out that I know it's still October, but if you want to find out about the Celtic Christmas podcast that I do, new episodes have already launched, so you can start subscribing now so that when you are in the mood for checking out the podcast, you are ready to listen. You can do that at CelticChristmasPodcast.com or patreon.com/Celtic Christmas. And you'll get periodic updates, primarily during the holiday season. So go check it out, CelticChristmasPodcast.com. Next up is Thom Dunn with the boys from County Cork.
You've read in history's pages the heroes of great fame, the deeds they've done, the battles won, and how they made their names. But the boys who made the history for the orange, white, and green were the boys who died in Dublin town in 1916. So meet the boys from Kerry, meet the boys from Clare, from Dublin, Wicklow, Donegal, and the boys of old Kildare. Some came from a land beyond the sea, from Boston and New York. But the boys who beat the black and tans are the boys from the County Cork. In Ireland's rebel county, our heroes fought and died. Tom Barry and his gallant crew filled Irish hearts with pride. From Skibbereen to Bandon to Bantry by the sea, our brave young Michael Collins fought for Ireland's liberty. So meet the boys from Kerry, meet the boys from Clare, from Dublin, Wicklow, Donegal, and the boys of old Kildare. Some came from the land beyond the sea, from Boston and New York. But the boys who beat the black and tans are the boys in the County Cork. Well, Cork gave us McSweeney, a martyr for to die. Wicklow gave us Dwyer in those days now long gone by. Dublin gave us Podrick, Pierce, McBride, and Cahobrew. And America gave us Steve Valera to lead old Ireland through. So meet the boys from Kerry, meet the boys from Clare, from Dublin, Wicklow, Donegal, and the boys of old Kildare. Some came from the land beyond the sea, from Boston and New York. But the boys who beat the black and tans are the boys of the County Cork. We seem to be divided, but I really don't know why. We've had brave men and heroes, and for Ireland they did die. So why not get together and join in unity? The north, the south, the east, the west can set old Ireland free. So meet the boys from Kerry, meet the boys from Clare, from Dublin, Wicklow, Donegal, and the boys of old Kildare. Some came from a land beyond the sea, from Boston and New York. But the boys who beat the black and tans were the boys in the county Cork. Yeah, the boys who beat the black and tans were the boys in the county Cork.
crowd, and the deeds to our friends we proclaim. Our spirits rise as we cry out loud, shouting all of our family's names. Proclaim. Our spirits rise as we cry out loud, shouting all of our family's names. Songs will be sung to the people gathered round, and our souls and our minds are aflame. Our spirits rise as we cry out loud, shouting all of our family's names. Words have been said and the stories are done, and our thoughts are all one and the same. Our spirits rise as we cry out loud, shouting all of our family's names.
After Tom Dunn came Dublin Gulch with Dispute at the Crossroads, Maids of Mount Cisco, and The Scholar from Tapper Light. They have a brand new album that came out. I haven't had a chance to download it yet, but I will soon. So check them out at dublingulch.com. We finished up the set with Chance the Arm. That was Seven Shields from All in Good Time. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And I hope you will also vote for your favorite tracks in this episode. You'll find a link to do so in the show notes at CelticMusicPodcast.com. We're going to finish up with the Inland Seas. This is Cold Blows the Wind from Crown of Clover. Thank you so much for listening. Sláinte.
Cold blows the wind over my true love. Cold blows the drops of rain
Support for this program comes from international speaker Joseph Dumons, teaching the ancient roots of the Gaelic people. Learn more about their origins at sightedmoon.com. Support for this program comes from Cascadia Cross-Border Law Group, creating transparent borders for more than 25 years, serving Alaska and the world. Find out more at cascadialawalaska.com. Support for this program comes from Hank Woodward. Support for this program comes from Dr. Annie Lukowski of Centennial Animal Hospital in Corona, California. The Irish and Celtic Music Podcast is produced by Mark Gundy, Celtfather, and our patrons on Patreon. The show is edited by Mitchell Peterson with the graphics by Miranda Nelson Designs. Visit our website to follow the show. You'll find a link to all the artists played in this episode. Todd Wiley is the editor of the Celtic Music Magazine. Subscribe to get 34 Celtic MP3s for free. Plus, you'll get 7 weekly news items about what's happening with Celtic music and culture online. Best of all, you will connect with your Celtic heritage. Please tell one friend about this podcast. Word of mouth is the absolute best way to support any creative endeavor. Finally, remember, our planet's future is in our hands. The overwhelming evidence shows that human activity is driving climate change, from record-breaking heat waves to rising sea levels. But the good news is we have the power to fix it. Every choice we make, reducing waste, conserving energy, supporting clean energy, and lobbying our political leaders moves us towards a more stable climate. Start a conversation today. The facts are out there, and the future is ours to shape. Promote Celtic culture through music at CelticMusicPodcast.com.